ain't sleeping till Hollywood. We ain't sleeping.
Hello. It's your girl, Gaelyn Smith.
And your boy, Caleb McDonald.
And this is the No Sleep Till Hollywood podcast. We're not sleeping until we make it in Hollywood. And while we're up, we will be discussing the state of the industry and our place in it. And we're so happy to be back from our little mini break.
Yes, we are. And big weekend. It is Juneteenth weekend, y'all.
Period. You know...
Not to overshadow Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all.
Also Father's Day.
Yeah.
Happy shout out to the fathers. Okay. I'm from DC, y'all. The fathers. Okay.
But something more of us could celebrate, happy Juneteenth.
Why'd you say more of us?
Because
that felt so shady.
No shade.
No shade. We love the black daddies. Daddies.
Absolutely.
Shout out to black daddies. I love you, Jeffrey. Shout out the game.
But it is Juneteenth weekend, and for those of you who don't know what Juneteenth is, let me tell you, it is a federal holiday.
A newly federal holiday.
A newly federal holiday, because in 2021, Joe Biden signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act into law.
And shout out to, Opal Lee, Lula Briggs Galloway, and other black activists who organized and made that happen, because, everybody needs to celebrate Black Independence Day as much as we need to celebrate regular Independence Day, because we know that really until everybody was free, nobody's really free. So Juneteenth to me is always like the real, Independence Day for the nation.
Because to say what the holiday actually is, it is commemorating the emancipation of enslaved African Americans. The holiday actually originated in Galveston, Texas, on the anniversary of June 19th, 1865, when Major General Gordon Granger issued an order proclaiming freedom for slaves in Texas. And that was 2 years late.
That's so wild to me, because they was free since 1863. Like, now you're doing illegal unpaid labor. Like, that's crazy. And apparently when I was doing some other research and listening, and also when we get into what we're talking about for today, it wasn't even so much as that Texas didn't know that slavery had been made illegal. They were just that don't apply to us. And other states were sending their slaves to Texas to continue slavery. Yeah. That's crazy.
It's not enough that our freedom was on CP time. You telling me y'all trying to hide the rest of the industry real quick? Come on. We know Texas is trying to leave the country. They try to annex every 5 years.
This might be me forgetting my history, but wasn't Texas Mexico for a long time?
For a bit. I mean, not for a long time.
Okay.
Because there's the War of the Alamo, which if we lost that, it would have been Mexico.
Copy. Right. I knew there was something about Texas and Mexico being cousins, and I just was confused. But like we said, Father's Day, Juneteenth. Caleb, do you have any plans to celebrate your blackness, and or maybe your dad and your blackness, but your blackness? What is your Juneteenth looking like?
Minding my black-owned business,
Period.
Hey, I'm gonna keep it a buck. No definitive plans right now.
Okay.
But we move.
I feel like your existence is a celebration of Juneteenth. You know what I'm saying?
Amen. Might see the new Spider-Man movie. That's black.
Boom! You a free black man can go see a movie on any day of the week that you want to, and you have a podcast where you can talk about how you feel and what you want to think about the world. That's Juneteenth to me, I would say.
That's Juneteenth.
It's giving Juneteenth to me. Okay. Honestly, I feel like this week I have a lot of plans, or by the time y'all hear this, I've had a lot of plans and I still have more plans. But on Friday, my father and I are going to the Kennedy Center in DC, and we're going to go see the National Symphony Orchestra's tribute to Marvin Gaye's What's Going On album. So that'll be my Friday. Saturday, I'm at work. I think I might have something else. Oh, Saturday, I'm seeing a play. I'm actually seeing a play by a black playwright starring queer black men about the HIV crisis set in the 80s, which I'm very excited about.
Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride, y'all.
Happy Pride. Out there.
Happy Pride.
Big month.
And then on Sunday, I am definitely going on this nature walk that's like hosted by Black folk, getting
Mhm.
Black folk active and also in nature. So I'm doing that. And then in DC, because it's also Black Music Month, in case y'all didn't know, and we'll talk about that next week, I believe. We're planning on that. But so DC is doing these free concerts at the MLK Public Library on the rooftop. And so I went last weekend to go see one of my favorite go-go bands, Rare Essence, but then they're having like 2 more on Sundays, and so I may go to that. I don't know the other 2 bands for like the rest of the month, but I may go see it because I had myself a good Black time at the Rare Essence concert. So yeah, that's like my plans. On Monday, which is actual Juneteenth, we'll probably be recording this podcast, and I feel like that's my actual Juneteenth day plan because it's also about to be my birthday.
That's right. That's
So,
right. It is coming up. You are turning blank years old.
blank
Wow.
years old. I'm so glad you didn't say how old I was turning because I was like,
You think
Caleb,
I
don't
would
tell
put you
me.
on the spot like that?
I think I low-key let it slip on my TikTok. I think I said something about like the age range of where I am. So
Hmm.
like I'm accepting the age that I'm turning and I'm like coming to terms with it. And I'm very excited about what this new year will have for me. We'll talk more about my birthday either next week or the week after. But
Right.
my Black owned business is being minded, it's being celebrated. And I'm happy. I'm happy to see my co-host. And that's what I got. But one of the other ways that folks celebrate Juneteenth is through the art of pageantry, which, if y'all know me, I am a former pageant girl.
Right.
I was Miss Black and Gold for my Syracuse campus, the state of New York, and the Eastern region, which is associated with Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, of which my grandfather was a member. But pageantry is something that is, big in the Black community. I feel like everybody has, like, you have church pageants, school pageants, all types of stuff. But we watched the movie Miss Juneteenth, which is all about a Black woman in Texas who is a former Miss Juneteenth winner who is now raising her teenage daughter and entering her into the pageant, and all about their life in, rural Texas, talking about the legacy, the enduring legacy of Juneteenth and what it means to celebrate it, what it means to be a Black woman of this time. And talking about just using the pageant to elevate your station in life. The big prize of the Miss Juneteenth pageant in the movie is that you get a full ride scholarship. Let's start there. Full ride scholarship to any historically Black college or university in America. And I'm gonna tell you now, as somebody who had to pay student loans, I didn't have to pay a lot of them. Well, I'm not even paying them now because y'all know. But I don't have a lot of them compared to other people. But I have more than I would like to pay. So if somebody had given me, I wish somebody had been like Gaelyn, enter this pageant in high school, and we're gonna give you a scholarship to go to HBCU. Baby, I'd have been at Howard. Okay, that's where I wanted to go. They
Mhm.
just didn't have the financial aid package that I needed. But then I would have never met Caleb and we wouldn't be having this podcast. So I feel like God's timing is always right.
God's timing is the right timing.
Yeah.
I do agree. And this is a debut drama feature
Mm-hmm.
film written and directed by Channing Godfrey Peoples.
Written, directed, and produced. I just want to put this respect on this Black woman's
Ooh,
name.
yes, of
I
course.
found that out early, like later, and I was like, ooh, now she did all of it.
That being said, Miss Peoples, handled the story writing, the performances, and there was a lot to talk about. There is a lot to talk about because the movie was also one of those philosophical, like get into the conversation
Yeah.
movies. So there is definitely a lot to talk about. What stood out the most to you about the film?
Whew. Obviously the pageantry and the
Hmm.
preparation for and what pageantry. It's such an interesting thing. I did a Black pageant at a white school, but it's a Black pageant, but still, like, even within Black pageant experiences, there is still an element of assimilation and an element of conforming to Eurocentric beauty standards that still happens. And so, like, the moment where, like, the daughter who has pretty much worn her natural hair, like, the whole movie is getting her hair, like, straightened with a hot comb, or, like, just even the way that these other Black women made fun of this young Black girl for not knowing the difference between her forks at dinner when they were doing the etiquette classes, like, that the experience of pageantry and decorum, because I also did a debutante process as well, like, all of that, because it's something that I've experienced, stood out to me, obviously. But really, for me, I think that our good sis Nicole Bahari, like, she in a movie that, like you said, is very philosophical, is more kind of day in the life. We're just watching things happen and there's no like big event.
Hmm.
She is such a skillful actor. She says so much with a look, with a breath, with an inflection, with a just the way that she moves on screen. I think it was such a just it's a masterclass, I think, in acting when you look at her. And I think like I remember the first time I saw this movie, I think it was in like 2020 or 2021. And I was
Hmm.
like, Nicole Bahari we should see her more. She should be nominated. Like, I didn't necessarily think that the movie was strong enough to warrant a full Oscars campaign, but I definitely felt like Nicole Bahari's performance was worthy of, recognition and award. And so that stood out to me. Obviously, there is a mother-daughter relationship that is very
Hmm.
tentative and messy between Nicole Bahari's character Turquoise and her mother, as well as Turquoise and her daughter Kai, and all of that was there. And it those were like the big things that stood out to me on like a surface big point. What about you?
Right. Well, we all know me. I'm a philosophical head. So that being said, watching the movie was sort of like the only way to explain it is like out of body experience
Okay.
because I'm looking at the movie and I'm seeing like the effects of Juneteenth, so to speak. Like
Yes.
I'm looking at life after freedom and how that wasn't giving us equality. That was giving us a chance, a break,
I think
if
something that's
anything.
important, like what you just said, that made me think about, and we didn't give a plot summary in the same way, because, like we said, it's kind of more about the conversations that are happening. But I think
Mhm.
the impacts of slavery and the effects of Juneteenth, I think, is a really good place to start. In that Turquoise was a Miss Juneteenth pageant winner back when she was a teenager. And like
Right,
we said, she's supposed to get a full ride to college. All of these things happen. And what we find out throughout the movie is that she went to Prairie View A&M, but didn't finish. She has her daughter younger than I think that she would have liked to, and younger than, those who gave her this, the Miss Juneteenth award were expecting her to. And
right,
that her life did not turn out the way that it quote unquote was supposed to, even though she had been afforded this great opportunity. And I
yeah,
think about like Caleb and I were talking about this before we got on. Like, I had watched the Tupac documentary, and I think of like similar things of like we have freedom and equality and equal rights under the law on paper, but we know that in this country, Black Americans do not have the same access um, to opportunity and to wealth building and to generational wealth that other people in this country have been afforded. And so, even when we're given what is supposed to be a leg up or an opportunity, it doesn't automatically mean that, like, even if you want to, you don't even necessarily know how to maximize that. Tabitha Brown was
right,
talking about, like, in her career as an actor, how she would pray to God for all of these, I want this role, I want to be on this movie, bop, 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 and then she would get it, but she didn't know how to leverage that into a career. And it took her time to build that. And I think, like, what you said about, like, oh, the impacts of Juneteenth, like, these were people who were free for 2 whole years and didn't know. And now are 2 years behind other Black Americans in building their life who are already 400 plus years behind white America. And I think that just was like, when you said that, I was like, that's a great way to bring it back to like a specific plot thing.
right. The movie also because so like the legacy and then also how that legacy kind of just left us to similar to what you were talking about, like assimilation. Like it was like, all right, you're free to go. And it's like, all right, well, we're just gonna mirror the success that we see. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's when we do get the, oh, you're eating with this fork and oh, you're not speaking proper English, you got to fix that up.
I have a question for you,
Hmm.
because it happened in the movie and it like instantly caused me like not a bad reaction, but I had a reaction when her mother kept correcting her, like the overcorrecting. I had a
Right.
like, because I just remember that happening to me as a kid.
Hmm.
And not that I was a kid who necessarily spoke like quote unquote improperly. I think honestly, I've gotten more relaxed with language as I've gotten older. But like, I
Right.
just was like, every time she did it, I'd be like, you know what she was trying to say. You know what she was trying to say. Was it that important at this moment? And
Right.
it got me.
Yeah, no, because the one of the themes of the movie was the mother-daughter relationship and how the mother just wanted what's best for her daughter. But it's crazy because, and I think this is something that the movie was, it's definitely something the movie was touching on.
Yeah.
A bigger theme of the movie is that you're trusting the system that's not doing you well at all. Like you
Hmm.
literally won this pageant
And it ain't do
and
nothing for
life
you.
still happened. Yeah. And then when you look at the other Juneteenth winners that like the host was talking about, you see that it's somebody in Congress, somebody who like made something of themselves in, for lack of a better term, white America.
Oh, I thought you were going to point out this part was like one person was a doctor, one person was a civil rights attorney, and then the other woman, they
Oh
specifically
yeah,
said, I forgot what her last name was, but so and so, the wife of Congressman such and such. And I was like, being a wife is the aspiration? Like, at least the other women in their own right had done something. But I was like,
right.
you can't mention the wife of a congressman in the same breath of
A
civil rights
doctor.
attorney and a doctor. Like, and that's not to say that like maybe as a wife she did more, but the way that she was characterized was the wife of. And I was like,
Hmm.
this, I as somebody who was educated in all girls high school, I just really have an issue with us setting that as a standard, right? Like, and granted, it was a small thing in the movie, and I think there was a reason why it was done in terms of like showcasing what their idea of success was, as
Right.
opposed to what Turquoise's idea of success and making it was. And there were overlaps, but there were some differences. But I was like, you want these girls to be a wife? You ain't even got to do all this to be a wife. You ain't got to do half of what they about to do right now. And I just thought that that was such an interesting, like,
Yeah,
trusting the
no,
system and using whiteness, and the aspiration is to be a wife of a
because that,
congressman.
that's like that's like looking at Halle Berry, Ha- Halle Bailey,
Okay, I didn't know
and
which. I was
being
like
like,
either one.
yeah, yeah.
Either
That's like
one.
looking at Halle Bailey and then being like, oh yes, and she played a Disney princess. Like she did a lot more. Like, come on,
But also,
we're
at least
we're
in that case, like she's redefining what a Disney princess
yeah.
looks like. Like at least that one's a more like inspirational, aspirational. Like that's also about
Hmm.
a career. But I was just like, oh, why? She's not even the wife of a king. She's the wife of a congressman. And we see how Congress
Right.
is not passing laws right now. So like, how powerful?
How powerful is that really?
You know what I'm
Especially as
saying?
the, yeah, yeah.
See.
Um, Expanding on believing in a system that fails you, pretty much.
Hmm.
Something that does happen towards the end of the movie is Turquoise, our main character, is she works at this bar kind of
Yes.
spot,
Yeah.
and so the owner of the bar gets sick, and then after he gets sick, towards the end of the movie, he ends up talking to Turquoise, and he's like, "You can't trust these banks because at any moment, like they could just rip it from you. So what you got to do is like you got to own your own stuff, like, and it may be dingy at first, but like at
You
least that's
own it.
yours." And so he ended up giving her the bar, um, and that just stuck with me because like
Hmm.
it really is systematic, like because for whatever reason, people could still debate if
Hmm.
something is systematic when they say like, oh, uh, businesses don't really hire black people. Like,
Right.
no, it just happens to be that way.
Yeah.
But we're talking about full on banks being able to just strip away, and also something else that was very, very
And
explicitly stated.
utilizing like under utilizing a lack of education to do so.
Right.
Because right, like we were talking about a whole bunch of even like the other women of like the pageant, like it's unclear like if you didn't win, you didn't get the scholarship, in which case not all of those women even went to college that she competed with. Right. So it's like we're talking about people who may have only have high school educations, if they finish that, and are trying to own businesses, do right by themselves, who are now communicating with folks in banks who have degrees in education and lawyers and all this power,
Mm.
like you said, it's systematic and it's systemic, but it's also just very like insidious, like utilizing an ignorance to be able to steal back.
I'm actually really glad that you used the word insidious
Mm.
because something that they placed in the movie that should be public knowledge at this point,
Uh-oh.
that's really just heartbreaking when you like. think about it is so Turquoise's baby daddy ends up sitting in prison. And he
For a
says
hot
that
second.
for a hot second. And he mentions that the state is going to use him for physical labor,
Go ahead.
continuing slavery, basically. And we all know that black men are incarcerated at a much higher rate than everyone else. So
We literally make up 13%. What is it? 13% of the population, but like over
80,
30% of the prison population, something like that. Now I want to like be specific, but
yeah, no, the movie did touch on that continuation of slavery, which also just had me down in the dumps because it's like this is the reality of our life. We are left
yeah,
with the scraps that we have, and it's just not easy, and we're trying to get ahead. It really
yeah,
made me look at myself, coming out of college. Like, I was told college job offers would be right out the wazoo, and
well,
I've had jobs, plural. So that tells you enough.
it's one of those things where it's like also, but like what people don't realize. So yeah, black youth are over 4 times likely to be detained or committed in juvenile facilities than their white peers. I was trying to find the like percentage of black Americans in prison, but I'm not seeing that number in an easy way. The number does exist somewhere.
Hmm.
But the other thing that's crazy is like people don't understand that the 13th Amendment outlawed slavery except for prisons.
Right.
Right. So, like, that's why in the South you still have chain gangs and field labor. That's why, prisoners can do labor and only be paid 5 cents a day for what they would get paid at least $15 an hour for in most parts of America. And so slavery wasn't necessarily, slavery just has shifted into what it is. And that's why it's like, but even like this country spends more money on housing prisoners than it does educating our children, telling us the values of the American systems, right? So it's like that moment broke. There's a couple moments in that movie that really just like break
Hmm.
my heart. That's one of them. The moment where because he was in prison and had to pay his fees for what he did, he didn't do
Right.
anything crazy, guys, but I just don't want to spoil all the deets. Nothing crazy. But he then doesn't have the money he's supposed to have to put up for baby girl's dress. And so she has to walk. That made me cry. She has to walk in the dress rehearsal for her pageant in her shorts and flip flops because she doesn't have her dress. Finished. Done. Broke my heart. I'm literally emotional about it now. But then, like, the moment that I think, like, is such an interesting one, especially because we did an episode a few weeks ago about Praise This, the church movie, was the moment when, so Turquoise's mother been trying to get them to go to church for longer than the time of the movie. And because Turquoise helps her mother at one moment, her mother then decides, okay, sure, I will watch your child while you go to work. But she has to drop her off at the church.
Right.
And they go to the church, and the mom's like, oh, just come say hi to the ladies of the church. And they're having a full old school Southern Black prayer meeting. And so the mom brings, Turquoise and Kai into the room, and she's like, oh, come into the center of the circle. And they start praying for them. But then, like, very old school, very Southern, like there are parts of, the Bible Belt where this still happens, but like starts laying it on hands on them, throwing holy water on the girl. And it's like, it just was such a, like, and basically being like, Lord, take the demons out of my daughter and my granddaughter.
Mm.
And it just was like, church hurt is real. And like, I don't necessarily have church hurt, but when I see experiences like this, when I hear people talk about things that have happened to them in church, it's just like, dang.
I be understanding why Jesus flipped some tables
I understand
when
why Jesus flipped tables, but I also like the older I get and the more I develop my own relationship with God, like the more I understand why people don't bang with church. Like messing with God, like I shouldn't say messing with God. Having relationship with God and being in religion are different things.
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's people that's like, God is my homie, but they're not gonna step in no church. And it's like, I see why. Like the judgment, the trauma, the just like, just everything. And it's like that moment is like it's a beautifully directed scene. It is really well done, but it's just like there are some heartbreaking moments. And I think because the movie doesn't build to a specific plot point of like, we're building to this event and then the aftermath, as opposed to like, what is life like in rural Texas for a Black woman who is not well educated, has a child with a Black man who is not well educated, but they are trying to make a better life for their baby. Like that is really what this movie is.
Mm.
And because of that, we get to touch so many things that like, growing up in DC, like it's not that people don't have those experiences, but it moves at a different pace than when you're in Texas with like no public transportation.
Right.
And it just is a really, I think as much as it's, you know, the story that it's telling, it's also in some ways like a documentary of life in the South.
Of Black life in the South.
Of Black life in the South. Yes. But that being said, obviously now it's a national holiday. Everybody's all for it. What are your thoughts, if you have them, about the commercialization of Juneteenth, about, you know, how it's being in some ways co-opted? I don't know if you saw, there was a story where, I can't remember if it was a church or a youth group or something, was trying to have a Juneteenth event, but they were like purposefully not using the word Black and trying to basically make it an everybody holiday when it is very specifically a Black American holiday.
Very specifically.
Like, what are your thoughts about like Juneteenth in the new landscape now that it is a federally recognized national holiday?
I think America low key needs to cut it with the PR stunts.
I thought you were about to say America has a problem. I was so ready for you to do it. America has a problem.
No, because like, you know, be about it, you know? What is Juneteenth other than an extra holiday? And why are we
What is
going
the 4th
by...
of July to the Negro? Isn't that's a Frederick Douglass poem, I believe. What is the 4th of July? What is Independence Day to the Negro or something like that?
Yes, I'm familiar.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like Juneteenth, that was Texas and like probably other parts of the South, but like very small in comparison to Texas. So we're going by this late date and not the Emancipation Proclamation. So kudos to the country for acknowledging that not everyone was free that day. But how, like, it just feels like people were advocating for it. And so the country was like, all right, here you go. Versus, you know, because like, and yes, you know, people would have felt away. People would have felt away, absolutely. But if they made it a Black only holiday, like if you identified as African American,
can you imagine like trying to get the day off and being like, you know how like you have to like check boxes on like the SAT and things like that? Like everybody being here talking about I'm a quarter Black. Because you know that's the thing, like the issue with like Blackness is that like for so long in this country we had the one drop rule. So like you technically can claim, because of the way that it was written in law, there's a lot of people like to claim Blackness that ain't Black. And it's like Black is as much genetic as it is also about like identity and like appearance, culture. Like, and not even culture. It's like I can't walk into a room, or like, just because I know this about you, right? Like you can't walk into a room and deny that you're Black just because you're also Afro-Latino. Like you can't just be like, I'm Hispanic. You're Black, sir. Like versus like there are people who are, you know, Afro-Latino who look more Hispanic or Spanish. In which case, like if you can separate your Blackness or can walk into a room and like it's not necessarily a, because your great grandma was Black, but now everybody else in your family then married white. You not Black, baby. I'm so sorry. You have Black in your lineage, but you not. Is that giving Black?
And it's also just disheartening because, you know, it's known as this Independence Day, right? But with the Independence Day of America, July 4th, there's like this American sense of, yo, we won that war. We got our independence. We've been fighting it for so long. When Juneteenth Like, even after we were free, we still got the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
2 years. Yeah. So I don't know. It shouldn't be as, but for me at least, the instant commercialization and the instant getting there of uplifting, it kind of hurts. It
I'm gonna
rubs
take
me the
what
wrong
you
way.
said a step further in that it should be an uplifting day for Black Americans, and it
Hmm.
should be a day of remembrance for
Right.
others. I won't
I
say
think.
mourning, I won't say shame, I won't say
Hmm.
guilt, but remembrance. In the
No,
same way,
I
like
agree.
Indigenous Peoples Day is not celebratory for the rest of us.
Right.
And it's not even a celebration for Indigenous folks. That's actually a day of mourning for them. And it should be like, I think you should have a similar thing of like, you Black American, and especially if you are like American for generations, and therefore like you had family members who were slaves in this country, celebrate that. Turn up. Go outside. Be you. We should be talking and teaching the legacy of slavery, the impacts of the civil rights movement and Jim Crow in the South. We should be learning about how slavery is still technically legal in this country, and like that's what it should be for everybody else. So if you're listening to this podcast and you are Black and you're listening to this episode, happy Juneteenth to you, babes. Okay, we outside with it. If you're not Black, then I hope that this has been a good starting point for your education, for you learning about Juneteenth and the reason why it's important. And if you have not seen the movie, go support a Black filmmaker and a predominantly Black cast, a Black leading lady. Go support that movie. You can go see it. You can go buy that on the streaming services. And I hope that after you watch this movie or after you listen to this podcast, you go do some learning, some research. You go educate yourself and educate other folks, other non-Black folks, because I also am very much Black people who choose to educate non-Black. That is a gift. It is a favor that is being done. But I do not believe that it is any Black person's responsibility to educate you on your ignorance and your racism. So I hope that you enjoyed the gift that is this episode. If you want to, send something to the Cash Apps or something, hit us up. But
Hit us up.
hit us up. Okay. If you want to send something to us. But other than that, like, you're welcome for the gift. Now go do the work.
Because the fight's not over. Because, how y'all gonna make Juneteenth a holiday and then say no to critical race theory?
Talking about the governor out there banning all types of stuff in Florida, and now the D9 is at risk in Florida and all types of other stuff.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
So equality is written, but is it respected?
Yeah, until we all free, ain't nobody free. And on that Black ass note, we're gonna go ahead and end this podcast.
Yes,
I
we
did
will.
so good. I really didn't cuss that much this episode. I was like, it just was right. It was right there. I just kind of
had to.
I gotta be me. But this has been another episode of the No Sleep Till Hollywood podcast. You can follow the podcast at No Sleep Till Hollywood on Instagram. You can also follow me, Gaelyn Smith, at GSmitty with 2 T's and 4 Y's on anything with an @ symbol. Specifically on TikTok, but anything with an @ symbol.
And you can follow me at Caleb Subtitles because read what I have to say. Subtitles.
Period.
That's it.
And on that note, good night. Good morning. See you next time. Love you so much. Bye.